the session live from. My name is Eugene Okumu, teaching fellow for the Sub-Saharan region under the Google News Lab division of the Google News Initiative. And I hope you're ready to dive into today's session, which is going to be covering environmental journalism. So throughout the week, we've been looking at a variety of topics that are available on the Google News practice site, that is g.co/news training, where you can get themed lessons on a variety of topics. So today we'll be looking at environmental, as I have mentioned. My name, of course, is Patrick Oko, fellow for the News Lab in Sub-Saharan Africa. My email address is eugenepatrick@google.com. Feel free to take that down and reach out in case you have any questions about today's session or about any of the sessions we've been looking at throughout the week. And I'll quickly give us a recap of what we've looked at. So we started off the week with storytelling with Google Earth. We've also looked at verification and how to ensure that what you're presenting as facts to your readers is factual information. In that regard as well, verification also taught us how we can look at fact checking and debunking instances of information that might be inaccurate or might be misleading. Then we also looked at data journalism and how you can tell stories using a combination of text, video, and animations. And that is basing off of stories that have a good deal of numbers to them. So today we're going to be looking at environmental journalism, basically taking care of the environment and some of the initiatives that Google has created towards this end. And we will be wrapping up the week with advanced search. Just understanding how you can better search for information vital to your storytelling online. And this is a particularly interesting themed topic in the sense that it enables you to get to the information of interest faster. So those are the areas that we've looked at in the week and what we'll be wrapping up the week with tomorrow, and then prepare for another round of trainings. Right, so we'll also be, just before we get into the environmental reporting, we'll look at a few elements of the Google News Initiative, and especially the Google News Lab, and why we do what we do, as well as some of the other pillars of the Google News Initiative. So within the Google News Lab, our main role is elevating and strengthening quality journalism. And as I've mentioned before, this is a direct counter to the advent of clickbaiting and fake news, disinformation and misinformation. And this was particularly handled during the verification session on Tuesday. Also, just a quick mention is that all these sessions will be available in a playlist on the Google News Initiative YouTube channel. So feel free to jump in there and revisit some of the sessions we've had in the week, as well as a quick reminder on some of the tools that have been mentioned in the course of the sessions. And all of the sessions from this week will be available in that playlist. So feel free to jump in and have a look at that. Right, so today, as I've mentioned, we're looking at environmental journalism. And this is basically taking care of our environment, and also looking at some of the projects and the tools that Google has developed to this end. So right off the mark, we'll be jumping into Earth Engine, which contains a series of time lapses that can tell stories. And I'd like to start with an example from Kenya, where the Mau escarpment has been a particularly polarizing political topic with the subsequent elections. Of course, Mau is a forested area and is one of Kenya's main water catchment areas. And the debate has always been whether allowing people to settle within distance of the escarpment has led to environmental degradation. So I will quickly open Earth Engine and show us a few things that you can learn from the platform and see whether there's any truth to political claims that the degradation has led to adverse effects in and around the country with respect to water shortages. Because, as I've mentioned, Mau Escarpment is one of the main catchment areas for water supply in major cities around the country. Right, so when you open the Google Earth Engine, it will usually start with the default of regions in the US. And if I can quickly take us through some of the elements of it that you're seeing on screen right now, as to the left, you'll have the Google Earth time lapse and some of the projects that have already been done. We can look at Columbia Retreat. We can look at mining in Alberta, Canada, drying of the Aral Sea, urban growth in China, and a host of other time-lapse projects that have been done. So you can collapse that column if you're not really interested in looking at it, so that you have a wider region of the time-lapse to look at. To the top right, you can see a smaller map of the region that is under consideration. Of course, you have the zoom in and zoom out buttons, and next to that, at the very bottom of the screen, you have the time lapse. That is the chronological panel that shows you which year the time lapse is at in the particular for the particular time lapse that you're looking at. So a few other things you can do with this is you can slow it down, you can speed it up. It just depends on the kind of output you're interested in. So you have a variety of three speeds. You have ×1, ×half, and then ×2.5. So it just depends on how quickly you want your time lapse to move. And as you can see, when I toggle between the different speeds, it responds in kind. So those are just a few things to note. Coming back to the left side of the screen, we have a search panel where you can look for a particular area of interest. So I'll go ahead and type in Mau Escarpment. And as you can see, it has given me a few options for regions in the country that have the name Mau. So here you have Mau Escarpment, Mau Escuela. This is in Brazil. Then Ester Petroleum Pump. This is in India. As well, the next option after that is in India, then the Mau region. So this is Nairobi Road, Elbagon, Kenya. So this is again a region in Kenya. What you're interested in at this point is the Mau Escarpment. So I'll go ahead and click on that. And if you've interacted with the mapping platforms in Google, you'll always know that it's a very seamless transition from the starting point to the point of interest. So that is where I have keyed in the search. And right off the mark, we can see that the chronological panel is shifting between the starting point, which is 1984, to the most recent, which is 2018. So the speed here is moderate, but the particular point of interest is the area we have keyed in for search. So you can see that the vegetation in the area and a few other elements of the imagery changes as the time also changes. So this is quite interesting for telling stories about how an area has changed. And if you caught an example of, say, urban growth in China, if you quickly click onto that, you'll see how the region has changed from 1984 to date, rather to 2018. So a few seconds to render the new location. Right, and as you can see, there's been a lot of changes to the location. from 1984 to 2018. You can as well zoom in a bit further and see how those changes have occurred. So you can see that at some point there was a creation of a man-made island, and this is made possible by the repository of satellite imagery that Google has taken itself and has partnered with other mapping organizations to be able to create these. So this is just a good way to look at some areas of the globe that have changed. We'll quickly jump into Lagos and see how that has also changed from 1984 to 2018. I'll just center that a bit, and then we can see how that has developed over time. You can see as well in this particular region that there's also been some changes to the coastline of Lagos. Of course, Lagos is a coastal city in Nigeria, in the west of Africa, and you can see that as well for Lagos, there's been some changes to the coastlines. And so the URL to that is earthengine.google.com/timelapse, and then you can search whichever location you want to create. And it's a global zoomable video that lets you see how the Earth has changed over the past 35 years. Right, so if I can just quickly skip back to my presentation for the day, then we can carry on with the session. All right, so another platform that you can use to to have a better understanding of the environment, and by extension, be able to tell environmental stories is forest monitoring. That's Global Watch, globalforestwatch.org. And I'll quickly open a tab for that, and then we can see how some of the locations in and around the world have changed over time. Right, so now I can share the tab, and we can jump straight into it. So this platform caters to understanding of how deforestation has happened, or reforestation in instances where countries have realized the ecological impact of deforestation to their ecosystems. So there's also instances where you'll find that some regions have undergone reforestation and not just deforestation, because this is again a phenomena that we understand that certain regions, certain nations have a sensitivity to, and therefore rely on with respect to sustainability of the environment. So this is what the platform looks like. You can discover wild forests. You can also get to better understand tropical deforestation. And it's also a good point to check out global country stats around forests. And again, this is a part of where you'll be able to see deforestation and reforestation happening. So we'll jump into global stats. And as you can see, the platform will show you primary forest loss in certain regions. Let me just try reload that and get the statistics. Right, so you will get a few points of information, for examples. For example, for here you will see that between 2002 and 2019, there's been a total forest loss of about 61.4 hectares of forests globally, making up 17% of total tree cover loss in the same period. So on the right of that, you will see there's a map that shows countries that forest statistics are available for. So here to the left, you have a summary, then you have land cover. I'll just re-upload those so that you can get the insights on them. So natural forests, these are the statistics for the natural forest available, and then non-forest cover. Then you also have plantations. So this gives you a broad spectrum of how land is used in the world in general, but also you can drill down to the specifics. So global locations of forests. As of 2010, top 5 countries representing about 55% of tree cover. So Russia had the most cover. This is as of 2010, just to mention that again, compared against an average, and that constitutes 755 hectares in comparison to the global average of 3.92. So you can scroll down this list and see some of the regions that constitute large covers of forest. Then intact forests, this is still a part of what you can access from the Global Forest Watch website. So intact forests, that's the number. Other tree covers, so this is just areas where people have then planted trees. And then non-forest cover, that's the number for that. So there's a lot of information contained in this, but then there's also things you can do with the platform itself. If I can just take a step back. So we can also look at the world's first data, and if we can quickly explore the data, see some of the insights you can glean from it. So I'll quickly close that pop-up. So whenever you visit the platform, there's other instances of information contained in pop-ups such as these that can give you further insights. I'll quickly close that. And then for this, you can actually just click on a country and then select the Analyze option, and it will give you some insights into what is happening in that particular country. So when you've selected a particular geographical location, the platform will usually zoom into that, and so it gives you a proper side-by-side visual comparison against the numbers on the panel on the left. So here you can see that, for example, from 2001 to 2019, Kenya lost 48.2 kilohectares of humid primary forest, making up about 14% of its total tree cover loss in the same period. So then if you scroll down, you'll also get other points of information. For example, it gives you a graphical comparison of the years under consideration. So this is a span of about 18 years. And you can see that around 2010, we had the highest loss of forest cover in Kenya. So that's about 6.75 kilohectares of forest cover lost in 2010. And this works pretty much for all regions of the world with data on forest cover. So for example, if we can quickly jump out of this and look at another region in Africa, let's go to the Democratic Republic of Congo, for example, and click on Analyze and get a clear picture of what forest cover changes over the years looks like in one of Africa's most densely populated in terms of vegetative cover. So I accidentally clicked on that again, and so this is what it looks like. And you can also see from the graph on the left side that in 2019 there was a lot of forest cover loss, and you can trace the point at which that forest loss started happening quite consistently. So in 2010 as well, in the that's one of the highest peaks of forest loss. And then you can see that 2010 on 2019, with the exception of a few years, that's between 2012 and 2014, but rather 2013, that a lot of some effort went into stemming the tide of forest cover loss. But then again, from 2013 onwards to 2019, there has been a pretty sustained loss of forest cover within the Congo. So just for a guide, you can look at so on the information panel option that's available on the left side, you have either analysis or legend. So legend just helps you understand the color coding of the particular region you're looking at. So you can see that tree cover loss is demarcated by the red legend, and the blue legend shows you areas in which there have been attempts at reforestation. So as well, with the analysis, you have the option of downloading the information contained therein, or downloading the data. And then you also have the option of either sharing the link or embedding it. So you can click and paste it in an email, or you can share it to social media platforms. So those are some of the capabilities of the Global Forest Watch website that enables you to share information about forest cover of pretty much any country globally. All right, so jumping back to my presentation, we can then carry on with other areas that we have for today's session. So this is just a screen capture of the regions of the capabilities and features of the Global Forest Watch platform. So as I've shown, there is the option of looking at legend or analysis. Also, something else I had not shown us, if I can quickly jump back into the platform itself proper, is that you can also get other insights such as the climate, such as the tree cover, and land use as well. So biodiversity. So if you click on any of these options, it will usually give you other options where you can click on that will give you insights. So let's go with Nigeria, rather Congo. Let's see if you can find that contained here. Okay, so for this, it does not give you full insight on all countries. It just depends on countries that have created that have statistics on this, for example. So if I can quickly zoom out of this, and then head to Brazil. So I'll close that pop-up box, then click on Brazil. Then you can analyze it. So this is quite handy for making comparisons, not just of forest cover, but what implications the forest cover has on, for example, biodiversity, climate, land, and land use. Then there's also other options that you can click on, but let's jump into the legend and see how the region we have selected compares. So again, we can see in the colors, in the color representation of the particular data we're looking at, is that if I can switch this off quickly, you can see areas of forest cover loss. Then you can see areas in which there's been some effort towards reforestation. And then once you now start clicking on the biodiversity and other options you can have, you can see that in Brazil, for example, there's a lot of biodiversity even for regions that are affected by deforestation. But regions with strong presence of canopy cover, you can also see how the biodiversity reflects. And if we can jump into another region such as land use, then we click on logging coercions, for example, logging concessions rather. So as well, you can see that it is available for certain countries, and this usually happens where data is being generated for those countries. So sometimes if there's no data being generated for that particular category of information, then you will also not be able to get the graphical representation of that particular information category on the Global Forest Watch platform. Right, so heading back to my presentation for today. So there's also information on forest fires and how those affect the vegetative cover that you can generate from Global Forest Watch, and a myriad of other points of information that you can get. Right, so next up we'll be looking at monitoring the high seas. This is especially for regions where there's fishing activities that also contribute to the country's socioeconomic activity. And the photo we're looking at on screen right now is a fleet of Chinese fishing ships going out to sea to conduct the fishing itself proper. So it is quite vital to have a platform that can monitor how those fishing activities are practiced and how they do affect the ecological system of the seas. Right before I jump into the platform itself, so this is an article that was conducted about jack mackerels and how fishing has affected their population in the seas. So the title of the article is Looting the Seas. It came in several parts. And then Pacific fish stocks decimated. So jack mackerel down 90% in 20 years in once rich seas. As trawlers compete for what's left. So then I'll quickly jump into the fishing platform. So the particular platform as well that we're looking at is globalfishwatch.org. So a few things you can do with this platform. You can, if I can just zoom out a bit and show us what that does. To the left side, you have some, you have the hamburger menu, for example. When you click on that, it will give you a few options you can explore, getting to understand Global Fishing Watch, the organization itself, the platforms, the initiative, research that has gone into understanding how fishing has affected regions of the world, then tutorials, map help, data help, definitions, and then a site map, and so on and so forth. So when you open this platform, it does require you to login. You can still explore the data, but it does require you to log in so that it serves you better. You can zoom into particular regions of interest. You can also zoom out just to get a broader scale of what's happening in those regions. You can share this either as a link or as an embed code, and as well you have the option of sharing this to your social media platform of choice. So I'll quickly close that and show us a few things about the platform as well. So you have the option of looking at vessels. You can look at layers. If you can click on the layers, so you have the base map, and for base map as well, you can have satellite, bathymetry, and then graticules. You can also look at active layers. You can look at light vessel detection, fishing efforts, and track some of the vessels that are known to operate within the region. Then you also have static layers, and this one also gives you an option of regions you can look at. So this is just a question of toggling the various options on and off depending on what output you want to have a look at. You can also choose to edit layers or add your own layers. Again, this is dependent on the angle of the particular story you're looking at. So we can quickly close on the layers and go to vessels. So you can search for particular vessels if you know what you're looking for. But if you need help with that, there's another platform, Fisheries and Aquaculture Department. Let me just quickly switch to that and show you what that platform does. So this is basically a fishing vessels finder platform. You can look at countries, you can look at sources, you can look at flags. So if you're interested in finding out, for example, what Kenya is doing with regards to fishing and some of the vessels that you would like to find out about their operations. So here we have MV Saboka. So once you have a name, you can then quickly jump back into the fishingwatch.org platform and then select and then find out if the vessel of interest has any activities. So here it's we're looking at MV Saboka. It will usually take a bit of time searching to see if there's any data on the particular vessel of interest. Sorry, I think I mistyped that. It's in fact Sakoba, not Saboka. So let me just quickly change that. So you have the option of recent vessels, or you can create a fleet, but that is assuming it has statistics that have been shared, or that the fishingwatch.org platform has access to, because there's also illegal fishing that happens in a lot of places, and some of these vessels do not, in fact, operate legally. But as well, because of the other filter options that we've seen, you have the option of opening the platform, and it will usually trace either nighttime activity or daytime activity. So where you see points of light, such as these on the map, if you hover over them, it will give you an insight that there's apparent fishing effort, and there are multiple objects within the location. And this pretty much works for any location globally. If I can zoom out and show you the full picture of this. So if we center this, you can see the extent of fishing activities in the seas and oceans of the world. And the lights also just give you insights into where the fishing activities are most pronounced. So usually when you click on the vessel option, it will so yeah, you can basically search for vessels when you click on the vessel option. Then you also have layers. So like I mentioned with the layers, you can select the options. So as you toggle, you can see that there's regions where when you switch off one option, some lights will disappear. And if you click on the fishing efforts, obviously you will not see any points of interest. Right, so that is how the platform works. It enables you to understand better how fishing activities are conducted in various regions. So at the bottom, you also have a slider for timelines, so you can select and see in case there was a point of interest in a particular time. So you can see that as we slide, there's a different showing of some of the activities within the regions that you're looking at. This also has a settings option, so you can select a time template. So for this example, we can go with 7 days and see what that looks like. You can also opt to look at 15 days and so on and so forth. So the beauty of this platform is that it allows you to have a look at calendar years, but then also durations within the calendar year that you're considering. So that is what fishing has looked like in 3 months between March of 2020 to present. So this also has a play functionality. You can look at how that changes throughout the year. And this is, of course, within the timeline that you selected. So if we can just quickly change and see what fishing activities have looked like. Let's play that. So this is what the fishing activity that is being tracked by fishingwatch.org has looked like from January to present. And this is basically a global map. So you can quickly, yeah, so I'll show us that again. So that is what Fishing Watch, Global Fishing Watch platform can do for your stories. So in the event that you're interested in, for example, tracking how some regions of the world have a smaller fish population or a higher fish population in comparison to others, this is the go-to platform. So if I can quickly jump back into my presentation. Right, so as I mentioned, this is one of the stories that was done on account of Global Fishing Watch platform's capabilities. And as I've shown us, these are some of the things you can do. So the example you're looking at is nighttime fishing. Nighttime fishing, yeah, characterized by the type of lighting that the platform enables you to be able to look at. And this is in 2015. Right, so that marks the end of today's session. In case you have any questions on trainings or tools, feel free to reach out to newslabsupport@google.com. If you have questions about the session today, you can reach out to me as well, Eugene Patrick at google.com. And then the next GNI session that we'll have is tomorrow, 1:30 p.m. GMT, and I will be looking at advanced search. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, again, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you found today's session to be instructive. And as I mentioned as well, all these sessions will be contained in the playlist. Monday to Wednesday session is already contained in a playlist. Head over to the Google News Initiative YouTube channel and look out for the GNI SSA sessions. So hopefully I'll see you again tomorrow. Thank you so much for making the time to follow the session today. And I hope to see you all tomorrow. So thank you, and enjoy the rest of your day as we gear up for tomorrow's session.